Okay, first lecture for Unit 3.2. When you guys got on today and checked in the Canvas, you should have seen I updated the front page a little bit. I moved our old unit down. Unit 3.2, this is the second part of what the AP curriculum calls time period 3. And I've put dates on here for 1783, 1783 to 1800. And the cool part about this time period is we are officially now the United States of America. Up to this point, it's been colonial history and leading up to the rebellion. But during the War for Independence, when France in the Treaty of Alliance acknowledges the colonists' right to exist independently. And then at the end of the Revolutionary War, the Treaty of Paris, Great Britain acknowledges our right to exist independently. That grants sovereign status upon the United States. And the 1780s and 90s are now, these first decades of our new nation. And I said in the announcement, or not the announcement, the discussion board that you guys were working on, that this is known by historians as the critical period. When you have a revolution, you're going to turn some things over in the old order, and then very quickly you realize you have to establish a government as well. You have to establish norms and rules and all the procedures for a good society to have. And if you don't do well in these critical periods, your revolution can break down, or it can turn into a series of one revolt after another. So 1780s and 1790s, we get to see what founding fathers and other early Americans did to try to put in a nation that could last and stand the test of time. You guys are working on a discussion board where you look at Washington and Jefferson writing letters and expressing some of their concerns from this period. They're actually referencing the event known as Shays' Rebellion in those letters. So, that might be something to jog your memory or to look up as a pivotal moment in the 1780s. Today, I mostly want to spend the rest of our time talking about America's first form of government, the Articles of Confederation. And if we have some time at the end, I'll show you some practice things for how to do a good thesis statement. So if you click on the unit page, and I've got the outline on there mostly. There's still a lot that I have to open up, but you've got your homework assignments over the next couple weeks, and you can kind of see what some of the lectures are going to be. And when your test dates are. These test dates are going to be your last big grades of the first quarter. So just by way of discussion, gradebook has been updated as much as I could up to this point. I still have some things to grade, and then this is what's coming for the rest of the first quarter. My plan when you guys are back here in person in A group and B group is to not really change the format too much, but just being able to give extra attention and extension to this stuff to the people who are in class. So you'll still have the usual 20 to 30 minutes of work a day, but the people who are in the building will get to have me helping them and being there to clarify things. For this lecture, there's a couple of links at the top of the documents, Articles of Confederation, Critical Thinking Practice. This is where I want to start. This is an activity that I'll do in class with students a lot of times, more discussion or group oriented, but I want you to kind of maybe in your notebook or at least in your mind go through some of this thinking. Facts about the Articles of Confederation. Here is a list, A to T, of a bunch of important things to know about the Articles of Confederation, developments, accomplishments, things it was good at, things it was bad at. The Articles of Confederation gets a bad rap. Like, the one thing that you have to know about the Articles of Confederation is that it is a weak form of government that eventually fails and leads to us forming a new government, which is our Constitution, the Constitutional Convention. So if I say that, then it's like, well, the Articles of Confederation, they were terrible. They were weak and they failed. They didn't even last a full decade. And so they're no good. But on the other hand, these were first put together and ratified in 1781. 1781 is 2 years before the American Revolutionary War actually ends. So one of the accomplishments of the Articles of Confederation is the Treaty of Paris itself. So, it can't be all bad if this is in fact the government that helped kind of steer the ship to the conclusion that we wanted at the end of the American Revolutionary War. In addition, as I said, revolutions can become a cycle, and for all its faults, the Articles of Confederation did hold the 13 states together and made some important lasting decisions during the 1780s. When you look at something like the Northwest Ordinances of 1785 and 1787. These are important things that you can look up, but this is a good accomplishment that the government under the Articles of Confederation did well. However, if you look through a lot of these, they are either maybe neutral or negative. And so, again, under the Articles of Confederation, you need to know things like they were weak. Most of the power did not go to a central government, it went to state governments. You see, that's what a confederation is. Con meaning the negative, federation, so no federal government. The idea behind the Articles of Confederation was that most power, so things like the power to tax or to form a currency, that needed to be handled at the state level. So this is something to know. The Articles of Confederation, they were weak, but this wasn't an accident. This wasn't like a mess up. When the Articles of Confederation crumble and we end up at a constitutional convention, nobody at that constitutional convention was thinking, oh my gosh, we didn't see this coming. We didn't know that the Articles of Confederation were going to be so weak. That was intentionally done. They were trying to put a lot of power in state legislatures, and they didn't want to give too much power to a federal authority. So that's why we formed a confederation. I think that the language in the Articles of Confederation document says that it was essentially a league of friendship of the 13 states. I always think that's a funny way to label your government. Hey, we're going to set up a government and we're going to call it the League of Friendship. That should have told you right away that it wasn't going to work. Articles of Confederation, weak, but they were purposefully weak. But by the late 1780s, it's going to be clear that they need to be revised. In 1787, there's going to be a constitutional convention, and the purpose of the constitutional convention is to revise the articles. What ends up happening is the Articles of Confederation get tossed, and they rewrite the script altogether at that constitutional convention. We'll talk more about the Constitution in another lecture. But what I need you to do, and I've only got a couple minutes left, so you're going to have to do a lot of this on your own. I do need you to dig into understanding what some of these things are. Things like no regulation of interstate commerce. What does that mean? And why was that a problem for the new states? Barbary pirates raided shipping. This is over in the Mediterranean. And as far as international trade, the new American merchants were having problems with the Barbary pirates. What's the history behind that? Why were the articles unable to handle that? Spain's denial of the right of deposit at New Orleans. What does this mean for our new government? So there's some stuff here that I can't explain in a 10-minute lecture, but I do want you to read about and to look up. Here's the critical thinking part of this. If you read the instructions up here, take these letters, A through T, and sort them into categories, any categories. You need to come up with them. Now, the short way to do this is say, okay, political, economic, social, maybe something else. I would encourage you to try to be more creative, more descriptive. Maybe think, instead of economic, maybe think like international trade versus the domestic economy. In terms of politics, maybe we don't go politics. Maybe we say like state power versus central power. But think through some categories and sort these details out in your mind so that you can organize a lot of thoughts. Now, here's the last thing. It says, finally, write a thematic sentence that states or implies a relationship among the categories and the lesson title. So here's the lesson title. You would create these categories and so on. Could you then write a thesis statement? A thesis statement is an argument. It's a main idea that shows historical thinking. And we've practiced this some with our first long essay, and I've given some feedback. At that point, we've got a couple weeks before we write another essay, but I don't want you to get out of practice. So this could be a good chance for you to take some information and maybe try to practice a thesis statement. If this isn't making sense for you, here's another place where you could practice. Going back to the documents, it says Articles of Confederation thesis statement practice. If you click on this, I've given you a prompt. It says write a thesis statement that explains the overall effectiveness of the Articles of Confederation. So that's a simple prompt. The effectiveness of the Articles of Confederation. Could you write a thesis statement for that? Then, here's a couple formulas. These are thesis formulas that they're probably not going to teach you in English class because the type of writing that you do in English class is a little different than the historical argumentative writing that we do. But these might be some things that could help you practice making a thoughtful, analytical, well-developed thesis. These are formulas. You don't have to use them, but it might be something worth looking at to figure out, how do I build thinking and analysis into my essays? I think these thesis statement formulas could be helpful. At the bottom of this page, I've also got some samples that of these kind of formulaic thesis statements. Again, practice some of this on your own. Think about it. We can talk about it next week when I see some of you all in person. Okay. Looking forward to next week. Y'all take care and keep doing your best. You're doing a great job. See you.